See, budget, this year's budget, unlike other budget, there have been many announcements. So, in the coming class, many topics will be covered. But today's session is all about concepts. And there is a high chance that from public finance alone or from the budget concepts alone, you will get minimum from budget itself, you will get 1 or 2 questions. And then there will be other questions related with public finance, because there have been nearly 50 topics, 50 new topics have been connected in this year's budget. Okay, so and keep this in mind. Okay, this budget was presented on the background of India is in recession. Okay, India is in recession. Okay, we have only Q1 and Q2 results, but anyway, from the first advanced estimate I told you, it is clear that our GDP growth is minus. So GDP in 2020-21 financial year have contracted by 7.7%. Okay, so because of this contraction in the GDP, okay, what happened is that the government, or due to the lower economic activity we have seen in the case of lockdown and other restriction imposed by the government. First, what happened in 2021 is there have been a huge shortfall in the revenue collection. Okay, so there have been huge shortfall in the revenue collection. Plus, the biggest thing which I will be discussing separately, okay, disinvestment have become very important. Okay, many new things have been announced in this budget. Okay, so the disinvestment target for this 2020-21 financial year was 2.1 lakh crore, and actually what is going to realize is just 32,000 crore. So again, in disinvestment target is still itself nearly 1.8 lakh crore shortage is there, plus the huge government expenditure. So on this concept lies the budget of, means on the base of this only, this budget 21-22 have been presented by the finance minister. Okay, so many things which we didn't cover in the concept class, so you need to just update it. Okay, now some figures which I have shared you the content in your, I have shared you that is your class today. Okay, all the data is there, but what questions UPSC will ask, that is I will be telling in the class. You just note down and you have to revise it and you have to connect it with the conceptual material, that is module 1. Okay, now so this is actually presented by the finance minister on, that is yesterday, that is on 1st February. Okay, so now if you look into, see everything which we have studied, if there is anything extra I will tell you, you just note down. Now from where the question will be asked on budget? From this one only, not, okay, so any component if you are not aware of, okay, you just note down, or if anything you, I will be discussing, you just note down. Okay, now if you look into the, see some, okay, revenue receipts, okay, there are certain terms will come across, I will discuss in detail. Okay, we discussed that budget is having revenue receipts and we are having revenue receipts and capital receipts. So look into the revenue receipts. Okay, so we will be looking into two figures. One is what is the revised estimate of 2021, that is this one. See, I told you budget will be having 3 years figure, actuals of the previous year, budget estimate and revised estimate of the current year, and the coming year budget estimate. Okay, so what you are supposed to know is that what happened in the revised estimate. Okay, so if you look into the revenue receipts itself, okay, see the difference. Okay, I'm just, see, this is how you have to study what happened in 2020-21 and then what is the projection for 21-22. that trend you have to see, that it's not about fact, it's about the trend, what happened. Okay, what is, they can ask you, okay, what is the reason for, I told you yesterday I have released a video also, you just watch it, you will easily understand it. Okay, that itself is a very significant thing. Okay, the the fiscal deficit have touched 9.5% of GDP, which I think it have never happened. Okay, so that will make a big impact over the economy. That itself will make many questions. It will affect all the topics which will be, I'll be connecting with it. That's a very important thing. Okay, so we'll see that. So, so why? So they can ask, okay, why there have been such a high fiscal deficit in 2020-21. One is this one only, revenue receipts. See, budget estimated nearly 20 lakh crore as revenue receipts. But what we received? 15 lakh 55,000. So nearly 4.5 lakh crore is short in revenue receipts itself. Now if you look into, I told you in revenue receipts there are two components are there, tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So again, both in the tax revenue as well as in the non-tax revenue, there is a shortfall is there. That you note down. So that is one important thing which you need to note down. Okay, so we know that, so total revenue receipts, you just note down. So what is the trend happened? So then in 21-22, what is the raise in the revenue receipt? See the difference. So the financial, in the coming financial year, that is the, in 21-22, the revenue receipts, how much is the target? Just see the difference, okay. It is 17 lakh 88,000 crore, okay. So it's not because government knows that, okay, in a week, when the economy is weak, okay, currently the economy is weak, if you look into many recovery is happening, okay. So to raise the tax, it will take some, the economy have to fully recover. The recovery of the economy, this itself is a current affair which I will be discussing in the economic survey, okay. V-shaped recovery that the finance minister is talking about while presenting the, so we are having a V-shaped recovery. V-shaped recovery is nothing but, okay, in, it's like this, okay, in 1920, what is this V-shaped recovery? You'll understand, okay, 1920, 2020, 21, 21, 22. In 1920, growth is 4%. Earlier it was 4.2. Earlier announcement was 4.2, but just 2 days back it was again revised. So in 1920 the growth is 4%. GDP growth is 4%. So if you are taking this as the 0, okay, what happened in 2021? So I'm just for you understand, okay, minus 7.7%. See the growth. Then in 2021, budget as well as economic survey says that the growth will be around 11%. So from minus 7.7%, the growth will goes to, this is V-shaped growth. Understanding? 4%, 7.7 negative, then again positive. So we will recover. Actually, the recovery already started. There have been improvement in the third quarter and fourth quarter. But even we recover, don't think that this growth is so high, 11, we cannot say exactly what is the figure. But economic survey says that it is between 10 to 12%. But budget says that it will be 11%, real GDP. Now, it will happen. But this 11%, you have to understand that this GDP is calculated based on the previous year. And what is the previous year? Previous year GDP is very low. So it's because of the lower GDP previous year, we are having a higher growth. We call it as base effect. Because the previous year GDP is lower. And how this, we are calculating the growth of 21-22 based on the GDP of how much GDP have improved from the previous year. So that's the reason. Then what happened in the next year? Next year it's a normal growth. It's like 6 to 6.5%, 6 to 7 or something like that. Then it will continue. That is actually, if you look into our average growth rate in the before this lockdown or 2-3 years back, okay, already our economy started showing signs of slowdown. See, 19-24%. So before this, if you take the last 5 year average growth is 6.5%. GDP is growing at nearly 6.5% average growth. So that we want to get back to that normal level. So that will happen, that normal level will happen from 22-23 onwards, we will be having that growth. But again try to understand that, so when we try to recover and when we have a normal GDP growth, it will take some time for the sectors like agriculture. Agriculture is again a very interesting thing which I will discuss separately in the economic survey. Agriculture is special in the sense that in this financial year 2020-21, agriculture was having a positive growth. Only industry and service sector was affected. And you know that from the agricultural sector, tax revenue is very less because in India agriculture is not. So the service sector and the industrial sector is still have not recovered it. Okay. So the revenue collection will to come back to these levels like this, for example, this level of 20 lakh, it will take some more time. So that background you keep in mind. Now coming to the capital receipts. Okay, capital receipts have become very important. Okay, because there is a problem here. What are the components of capital receipt? We discussed recovery of loans. We know that. Okay, recovery of loans. Okay, then other receipts. This is, see, this here. Please note down here. Other receipts. Here, this other receipts is nothing but disinvestment. So in this figure, that word is not used. Now this can be a potential question for you. This can be a potential question in the sense that, okay, in the year 2020-21, the budget estimate was 2.1 lakh crore was the budget estimate. How much the finance minister is expecting? 32,000 crore. Okay. So the government could not able to sell many public sector undertaking, including strategic investment. Okay. So that shortfall is one of the reasons for higher fiscal deficit in the year 2020-21. So this is very important. I'll discuss in detail, just note down. Okay. Now, what is the disinvestment target for the 21-22? 1,75,000 crore. So how the finance minister is going to get this 1.7 lakh crore is very interesting. Other than the strategic sale of like BPCL, because BPCL was planned in this year 2020, but it could not able to do it. Air India, see, too big. There are other strategic sales. Strategic sale means the government will be losing control. It's unlike normal disinvestment. A major portion, that is more than 51% of the share, or sometimes the government may completely exit from that PSU. Okay, so that will happen. But more than that, the finance minister also announced that the government will be monetizing many assets. So that becomes a very important. So what is the target of monetization of assets is not announced. Okay, so that topic, that is monetization of different assets, becomes very important for you. I'll discuss in detail while I'm discussing this investment. Okay, so that you keep in mind. Okay, so this is very important. That is here this investment. Now this, that is borrowing and other liabilities. What is it? What is the other word which I used? Fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit. See, what is the means earlier budget estimate 7.96 lakh crore. Now what exactly have happened? 18.48 lakh crore, that is approximately 18.5 lakh crore. See the difference. So from this was 3.5% of GDP. Okay, this was 3.5% of GDP. Now this has become 9.5% of GDP. Okay, so that trend you keep in mind. Okay, so but in the coming financial year, that is in 21-22, it will be around 15 lakh crore. So that is also very high. That is 6.8% of GDP. So in the coming financial year, that is in the 21-22, the fiscal deficit is still high, even though comparatively it is lower. From 9.5, it is coming down to 6.8. But the question is whether that itself can be attained. That's a big question. This is only an estimate. Okay, so that you keep in mind. Okay, now so this we have studied. What is total receipts? Revenue receipts plus capital receipts. See, 1 plus 4, revenue receipt plus capital receipts. So this you keep in mind, okay. Now the revenue receipts, or sorry, now the total receipts of the, now you look into the revised estimate and the budget estimate of, if you see that, okay, the total receipts is, it's almost same, okay, 34.5 lakh and 34.83 lakh crores. So this trend you keep in mind, okay. See, again I am telling, they will not ask you facts, but the trend is very important for you. So that's about receipts. And I told you total receipts and this total expenditure will always be the same. Yes or no? So see the total expenditure, it is the same. Total receipts and total expenditure is the same. Now on the expenditure side, there is revenue expenditure is there is capital expenditure is there. So they have not used that word, okay. They have, instead of giving separate like this, they use the word, okay, total expenditure on which revenue account. So this is actually the revenue expenditure, okay. So this is on the, we know the revenue receipts, this is the revenue receipts. So the revenue expenditure, you just note down what is the revenue expenditure. It is revised estimate, it is 30 lakh crore approximately. And for the coming year it is 29.29 lakh crore. In that, see the interest payment, okay. So the interest payment, okay, see the interest payment burden, the government, there's no big difference, okay, because interest payment is always previous year. But see the interest, see the 21-22 interest payment, there have been an increase. It is, interest payment is 8 lakh. See, in the 2021 interest payment is 6.92 lakh crore, but in the coming year the interest payment is 8 lakh crore, okay. Now I told you this grants in aid for creation of capital assets, okay. This term is very important because this, with this we comes with a new concept, what is called as effective revenue deficit, okay. That's why it's showing it, okay. So basically when the central government give grant to the state, a certain proportion will be used for capital assets. So that is the component here. So you can see that that is coming around, revised estimate, it is 2.3 lakh crore, and for the coming financial year it is 2.1 lakh crore. That also you keep in mind, okay. Now coming to the capital account, capital expenditure, expenditure on capital account. Capital expenditure is 4.39 lakh crore, and the in the coming budget, sorry, in the coming financial year, that is the budget estimate 21-22, it is 5.5 lakh crore. So this is a good, this is another point you need to note down, this one. Like this, like this disinvestment target, this is one area of question, potential area of question. What happened or why it failed? Now this is also very important, okay. Now what you need to note down is that the total expenditure of the financial year 2020, 21 and 21-22 is not that different, yes or no? There is no big difference in the total expenditure, 34.5 lakh crore and 34.83 lakh crore. And I already told you revenue expenditure is an unproductive expenditure, capital expenditure is a productive expenditure. So one good thing, one positive thing about the this year's budget is that they were able, the finance minister was able to increase the capital expenditure compared to the previous year. Okay, so it means that, so in 21-22 the growth in capital expenditure is more. So that trend, that is very important, that we have to maintain it, that increase in the capital expenditure is very important. That is another thing you need to note down. Now this deficit concepts, we already discussed, okay. What is, just you again, first you need to know the concept of these deficits, second you need to know the figure. Now this year's figure is very important because this has become a very important current affair. Normally I told you the fact is not important, but this year's, for example, now fiscal deficit is very important. The fact of, you should know in 2020-21 what is the fiscal deficit. You cannot say that it's a fact and because that fact is very important. That's a normal fact. It's a big deviation. So it's 9.5% of GDP in 2020-21 have become very important. Okay. So similarly, what is the revenue deficit? What is the percentage of revenue deficit? Okay, that also you just and see the trend. Okay, so the revenue deficit is 7.5% of GDP. Revenue deficit is, so what is revenue deficit? Revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. So the revenue expenditure is more than revenue receipts. Okay, so that is 7.5%, and in the coming year we will reduce it to 5.1%. Okay, okay, so just note down this one. Okay, 7.5%. Now, effective revenue deficit. What is effective revenue deficit? Revenue deficit minus grants in aid for creation of capital assets. That is 14 minus 12. 14 is revenue deficit minus grants in aid for creation of capital assets. So you will get effective revenue deficit. Okay, effective revenue deficit is 6.3%, and for the coming year it is 4.1%. Okay, now regarding the trend, I will show you that there is a separate figure is there. Then fiscal deficit. Okay, so this formula is very important. The fiscal deficit formula is very important. Okay, it is how the fiscal deficit is calculated. Fiscal deficit is calculated based on, okay, fiscal deficit is total expenditure minus then revenue receipts. Add to the revenue receipts, what you have to add? You have to add this C, not only recovery of loan 5 and 6. So we will use it as non-debt. This is the word we used. 5 and 6. See, in the capital receipts, 5 and 6 are non-debt capital receipts, and 7 is debt capital receipts. Because this is a debt, these two are 5 and 6 are non-debt. Okay, so we will add to the revenue receipts non-debt capital receipts. To this is the formula for fiscal deficit. Okay, and what we will be getting? We will be getting 7. That is the fiscal deficit, or this borrowing and other liabilities is the fiscal deficit. Borrowing and other liabilities is the fiscal deficit again. So since we had in the 2020-21 9.5% fiscal deficit, and also in the coming year 6.8% of fiscal deficit, there is a high chance that they will ask you this question concept wise, or they can ask you why fiscal deficit is so high. I explain the reason. Then primary deficit. What is primary deficit? Fiscal deficit minus interest payment. Okay, minus interest payment. So fiscal primary deficit is also 5.9%, which will be brought next year. It will be brought down to 3.1% because fiscal deficit will be lower comparatively, even though interest payment is higher. So this figure. So what you are, from the examination point of view, what you have to look into is, that is disinvestment trend you need to note down. Then the fiscal deficit trend, the percentage and the figure. Then the total expenditure trend and the relative capital expenditure movement. So from here, you can, from any of these, you can expect a question. And how the UPSC will ask the question, how will you know that? Look into the previous year question.